Hello and welcome to Sasquatch Talk. My name is Bradley Valentine. You've got Troy Miller and Dan Adams here as well. Today we're on episode 11, so we're starting to get some rhythm here. What is this, our third or fourth episode of the year? So more episodes coming your way. Last week we talked a little bit about media bias, and it kind of naturally led us to something called Operation Mockingbird, which I didn't know a lot about until recently. So we're going to get into that. But to get us started, I have a quick question for you guys, a little bit of an icebreaker, since we've been talking about the media a lot, and Operation Mockingbird has to do with the government interfering with the media. Troy, I'm going to start with you with a little icebreaker. Has there been a point in your life, or what point in your life, where you're like, I'm not sure I trust the media or the news or what I'm reading or watching? Are you at that point, or have you had that point? If you had, what point was it?
I was never the type to follow anyone like news agency really closely, read CNN or Fox
Sure.
News or whatever every day, or have the TV playing for an hour or two each night. But the one part that made me really question all legacy media was in the 2020 peaceful riots, right? They're saying it's just a peaceful protest as cars are burning and people are throwing in bricks into storefront windows and looting and attacking. That's when I was like, all right, they're deliberately lying to us, obviously. And to this point, I question every main media organization out there. I don't pay attention to them. They've lost all legitimacy to me.
When you were talking about the peaceful protests, are you talking about like the Black Lives Matter protests?
And the George Floyd protest.
Okay,
that was the big one in Minneapolis, was a ground front. But me living in Oregon too, Portland got a lot of it. So it was on a lot of the local news. And that's when I don't even pay for cable television.
Sure.
We have a couple streaming services that my wife likes to watch, but I don't. It was that particular year. It was like, all right, these guys are full of a bunch of BS.
All right. What about you, Dan? Same question. Has there been a point in your life where you've lost trust, or do you not know, or do you trust them?
Yeah, I don't. The media or the government. Let's see, back in high school, there was a free concert going on at Grant Park, and things got a little out of hand, as they do in Chicago sometimes. But it wasn't like a 4-block city riot, and nothing got burnt down. There was some tear gas. But when I watched the media coverage with friends that were there, you would have thought the National Guard was dropped off.
Sure.
From the media coverage.
Yeah.
And then just throughout time, I'm not saying that I have disregard for human life, but every shooter event that's happened, right? The initial reports are AR-15 style rifle used.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, basically any rifle that a bullet exits the end of the barrel is an AR-15 style rifle. Right? Especially if it's semi-auto and has rounds in it. You could say, oh, it was a ball cap style hat, right? Well, your hat is different than my hat.
Right.
Whether it's a 6-panel or a flat bill or whatever. We know, people that know hats know there's lots of different hats, right? But for it to, be on your head and have a bill makes it a baseball style hat.
Right.
The media uses, and has for a very long time, a biased slant to control the narrative, right? We've done that to overthrow various regimes and different, and when I say we, I mean our country has used media outlets. We dropped leaflets. We've, told people that they were under like extreme control to get them to distrust um, their current regime. Um, but one of the big ones for me, not the riots, but the safe and effective for the shot, right?
Mm,
For the COVID-19 vaccine.
yeah.
Every small town, big town, it was all the same slogan and phrase, right?
Yeah.
But if it was what they said it was, there wouldn't be a problem, right? But now there's, years long things looking into it. I mean, the dude that killed the healthcare guy, that's part of that. We
Yeah.
already talked about what's his name?
Louis.
Luigi.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Man,
Luigi Mangione.
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, right. That ties into that. There's so many things that they said that we didn't fund the research that happened in China that people said didn't happen, but
Yeah.
actually did happen.
Yeah.
And then the emails get leaked, right? Epstein, we brought that up, right? First it was nothing. Then somehow he hung himself in his cell with, stuff that he didn't have access to. Um, there's hard drive drops. There, Edward Snowden. If you read that whole thing, we're talking about you can't say Operation Mockingbird without thinking about Edward Snowden and antitrust and like how
Yeah.
the government overreach into privacy. Basically, they want to know everything before you know anything, which, that's a good model if you're trying to
Huh.
shroud everything in secrecy, but that's not the transparency they would have you believe is going on, right?
Yeah.
Um, these devices that people use are basically personal trackers and monitors. I'm gonna try to do once a week without my phone. Like I'd rather
Yeah.
have 5 days a week without my phone, but we're
Yeah.
trying to run a business and stuff, and it's a little hard to not
Sure.
be reachable all the time when you're in 3 areas of the country. But my distrust of the media started, way back in the 90s, and of course I like reading about history and different things, and like there's FBI, releases. They sprayed LSD on like 6 blocks of freaking
We'll
St.
get there.
Louis.
We'll get there.
Like, but anyways, how that was told to people
Yeah.
is that they were testing a mosquito spray, and they used the media to tell them that.
Where was this?
St. Louis, it's a
Oh,
dude.
I've
Let's-
never heard of that.
Let's hold off onto the government interfering, because I want to make the point, and I'll start with me, like with high school. I kind of went through this period of like going through what most people go through in like their 30s and 40s, is like learning about like the government and political parties. And in high school, especially in the Chicago area, everyone's like a bleeding heart liberal, right? Like that's like, it feels like the nice thing to do. You're the good guys. And I, especially in my last couple years of high school, I was like one of probably maybe two out of every class, two of 30 people who were in a class. I was the only one who leaned Republican or conservative or whatever, right?
Conservative, yeah.
Yeah, and especially in Chicago. And I remember
Yeah.
people talking about the media, and I think one thing that threw me off is everyone like was super Democratic or liberal and would always say that Fox News is super biased. And I don't even watch Fox News like you, Troy. I don't have any cable subscriptions. I don't really watch the news almost ever. And the only time I really want to is like when there's a presidential debate or something. But I was just like, it's funny that the only thing that they point to is one bias, the conservative bias. Not like that there are other biases out there. And that's kind
Yeah,
of
there's
what...
not 8 other Democratic bias
Right,
leaning
yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Like you yourself stopped reading Wall Street Journal. Like,
Yeah. And I love to read the news, but it's just so hard to actually find something that isn't biased. And I don't care. Like, I don't care what your bias is. I want to read
Yeah, we all have
the
personal
news.
bias because that's
Yeah.
your lens.
Yeah, I don't want to read a pro-Trump news all day long. I don't want to read a pro whatever. I just want to read facts and then I'll make my decision. Today I'm pretty good at
Yeah.
that. Like it's almost like I can go Terminator style and like cross off the bias lines to get the information. But most people aren't like that, you know, they just believe what they read. So
The very first thing they see and hear too.
absolutely. And a lot of times
Yeah.
the first thing, Troy, is like the headlines. And
Yeah.
sometimes the headlines aren't accurate. Like they make you believe something immediately and people just read it and be like, oh my gosh. And it's like, well, first of all, you didn't even read the article.
Yeah.
Read the article, you know?
Well, yeah, and what you're saying, like your current scenario, right? Like we're in an election year, so they're going to try to defame whoever's current. And I watched it happen with Democratic people.
Sure.
When they were in office, Republicans would just monster like on spot, like just this massive landslide of negative information. It doesn't matter what good they did, right?
Mm-hmm.
As long as you can tell somebody how bad they were, like, if you're on the tail end of a long, hard winter, and I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, you're tired of scooping snow, you're tired of shoveling, you're tired of scraping your windows, you're tired of sliding into, stop signs and having to drive slow and other people drive crappy, right? And you're like, down here in Florida, we don't have snow, we don't have this, right? And you're like, oh, that's actually bad. What I didn't tell you is about the 8 months out of the year that you sweat down to your belt line through your shirt while you're trying to work on stuff, right? And like maybe you're a profuse sweater and that's not anything you want any part of. But I've convinced you that Florida might not be a bad option just by stating all of the negative facts, right? Or all the negative facts, even if it is factual, you focus on all of the negative things. It's really easy to slant you start to go, well, maybe it's not so bad, you 37 mosquito bites on the way to get the mail later. You're like, I hate this place.
Okay, Speaking of Florida, do you guys remember in 2020, during COVID, it was like in the summer of 2020, right? Everyone was locked down and like couldn't leave their house, but Florida was open and like they were showing like all the people in their 20s partying for spring break or summer break or whatever. And everyone's like, man, then this was before you lived in Florida for Dan, for the audience. Everyone's like, man, don't go to Florida. You'll die, like from COVID, right? And everyone was partying in Florida. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Texas too.
Yeah.
Texas too was like I think Texas and Florida sold more booze than, they made fake hand sanitizer out of in the rest of the country.
What were you going to say, Troy?
And then I found it crazy. We did the 2 weeks thing, right? We were like, all right, we'll give it 2 weeks and see. Maybe it's crazier than we think, right? And like at the end of that, I was like, we're done with this. We're not doing this anymore. This is insane, right? So then we just went outside and kayaked and took the kids places and went and saw things. And people just stared at, like I literally got chased out of stores because I refused to wear a mask. And I'm like, if you're sick, you could wear one, but I'm not wearing one. I'm not sick.
Exactly. I didn't even abide by that 2 week thing. I thought the whole thing was just BS. But going back to like Texas and Florida, Utah was the same way. They didn't shut down. They may not have sold the booze like Texas and Florida. But
that's because 60% of that state doesn't drink.
Well, but they stayed open, and and they didn't force the vaccine on people. They didn't make it a law to get it, to keep employment, that type of deal. And whereas Oregon, they're like, shut everything down, stay in your house, wear the mask, freak out.
Yep.
Well, dude, I knew people that were getting undressed in their garage.
And
washing their clothes and made makeshift showers in their garage. I'm like, I don't know if you know this or not, but World War Z is not real yet, but okay.
This isn't supposed to turn into a COVID thing.
I know. But the thing is, you can't talk about media bias without bringing up 3 years of lunacy.
Let's get into it. So last week after our podcast, we're like, let's talk about Operation Mockingbird. And I'll admit I knew very little, and that
Yeah,
phrase in
same here.
itself didn't mean anything. So Dan, I'll throw it to you. Just give us like a 30 to 60-second rundown of what Operation Mockingbird is, and we'll go from there.
To really boil it down, the United States government used the CIA to use the media. They planted CIA operatives as anchors in like news anchors in the media to give a definitive narrative to the American public to to draw a real enemy where there was none.
Okay.
And to understand the impact of that means the government that has this, they would have you believe it's got a happy little rainbow over the top, that they work for you and that they're here for you and they're going to help you to survive. Really wanted to just screw with your mind and turn you against other people that just want to feed their kids, see grandbabies, eat meals together, and have some celebration time together and mourn the loss of loved ones, which is all things that we all do, right? But they wanted to draw an evil enemy, right? Where they're kind of, there was, but there wasn't one. Like it's pretty wild.
Sure.
Cold War, and even before that, like World War II. I forgot. I didn't pull up the date. I had the date and I lost it in my little technical difficulty setup because I just started deleting tabs because I was angry.
Okay.
And deleted the tabs that I needed to have open. But I forget, do you have the year that it started? It's longer ago than we think.
It was the 40s. It was right after.
1940s is what I have. I don't know if there's an exact date.
Yeah, the end of like World War II era, right?
Right at the beginning of the Cold War.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
after World War II ended.
The end of World War II, but it wasn't called Operation Mockingbird. But before that, I want to say Eisenhower, through the film industry, like Hollywood, every script that was released had to go through the White House agents. Like they had a whole separate agency stood up for all scripts. They had to go through that for national security.
So, okay, let's get into that. And Troy, I'll throw it to you. I think one thing to think about, and Dan, you brought this up, is like the Cold War era.
Mm-hmm.
So you think about Soviet Russia, right? They are like, they kind of have that, like that state-run media. And I think, like if we're just looking at this through a non-biased lens, the idea was we're combating the Soviets
Communism.
and what they're doing with their propaganda with our propaganda. Now, is that a good idea? Probably not. But that was the idea, is like they have their own thing going on, we have our own thing.
What do you think it would have looked like had you just said it, tried to compete each other? They had the KGB, which is basically their tool that pushed that, and our CIA. They were kind of doing the same thing. If the KGB was doing that, but the CIA or the United States wasn't pushing a counter narrative, what do you think it would have happened in, say, Europe or other Western allies if we weren't pushing an anti-communism? So you said it may not have been a good idea. Maybe it's not a good idea to have done nothing.
So you're saying like what, maybe it was effective to show the evils of communism?
I think so, but that's the whole basis, was to prevent the spread of communism in the first place.
Right.
Especially with neighboring countries to the Soviet Union. So you think of Europe. It just happened to have gotten out of control in time as it got more resources. But yeah, they used the media drastically to push their narrative. So whether it was always right, that's the other thing.
The question is, do the ends justify the means, essentially, right? Like, we know that communism is evil and wrong, and it's a terrible economic system. It's a horrible political system. It causes millions of deaths and poor supply chains, and usually starvation, rotting food, etc. Is the
Oh, that was
do the
true
ends
too. Yeah.
justify the means? Well, I'll throw that to you, Dan. What
All
do you
right.
think?
Let me bring up a point. We talked about rotting food. We pay farmers literally not to grow food.
Right?
We have starving people. We have civil unrest and millions of people dying.
Are you talking about the U.S. or just around the world?
No, the U.S.
Yeah.
versus, communism that we're, combating. I'm not saying it's good. Please don't hear me say that. But what I am saying is the things we're combating are still happening here. What if all the resources that we use to combat that were used to actually fix our own crap?
Yeah. I almost feel like what we were doing when we were, like you said, we were paying people to like destroy their crops in the 1930s.
We're still doing that, by the way.
But to me, that is closer to communism than a free market. So it's like the closer we get to communism or whatever, the worse things are, right? The more money we spend on these bullcrap programs economically, the worse it is. So sometimes it seems like we're doing something opposite of the enemy, but we're on the same principles. We're just like, it's just a different method.
It looks like this to me. When you go buy coffee, right? You can get flavored coffee. You can get instant coffee. You can get Folgers coffee. You can get, Hill's Brother. It's all still coffee,
Right.
right? It all comes, if you buy Arabica coffee, it doesn't matter what you flavor it like, it's still coffee. So just like peanut butter, right? Whether you add sugar or you don't add sugar, it's natural or it's got oil or it's emulsified, it's still peanut butter, right? There's variations of it, but it still tastes closely like and looks like peanut butter. It still tastes closely like and looks like coffee. They even take chicory root and ground that up and roast it to make it taste like coffee.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if you're disguising it as democracy, right?
Right.
You think you have a choice. Like, do the elections really matter? Like, I don't know. There's all kinds of ongoing legal battles right now,
Yeah.
for election stuff. It just feels very rebranded when you have this amount of government overreach. We just have a higher sense of freedom without, I'll say, actually being free, but you can be free anywhere. It's just whether you get caught or not.
So, well, first of all, Troy, this is your fault for getting us into this question, for asking that question. You got us off track with one little question. But, okay, so the idea is that this Operation Mockingbird tried to get us, like, to propagandize America and our systems over the Soviet systems. So, Troy, based on our argument, do you think, I guess your question was like, is that okay? Should we have done nothing instead? What's your answer to that question?
Oftentimes doing nothing is the worst option.
Mm-hmm.
Even, sitting there on the couch doing nothing, you're going to get nothing, right? Whether what you do is the best decision, still better than doing nothing, in my opinion. So confronting communism, that was the whole point of the Cold War, was to stop the spread of communism.
Sure.
But as you're talking.
It also was about nuclear arms race and upgrading our arsenal and.
Well, that was the whole Cold War. It was a whole.
That's like saying that the Civil War was about slavery.
Mm-hmm.
It was it was a whole number of things. It wasn't just one
Right.
topic, but
Right.
the Soviet Union became the enemy, and we had to confront what the Soviet Union was doing during the Cold War, whether it was an arms race, the nuclear build out, the space race, the stop of spreading of communism, right? That was the whole point of the Cold War. As far as that whole food thing, though, like you said, you may have the illusion of an option. It was a decision to take that payout to destroy your food. Yes, it's still happening. I get it. But you look at the food production, there's no other country that produces as nearly as much food as the United States. And these farmers, they realize that they can make more money by producing the food instead of taking the government payout to
Yeah.
destroy it.
Yeah.
So it is that decision there at that point.
But
As
it
opposed to
wasn't
the
always to
Soviet.
destroy it. We would pay farmers to just leave their field
So and they
open.
didn't have to take that payout.
That's a good
Whereas
point.
like the Soviet Union,
They didn't.
they were forcing people to destroy
Yeah.
their food.
Oh, yeah.
They had no option. And
Yeah,
that led
I
to
agree.
starvation in that country. There was more people starving there
Yeah.
than there is in this country. Yeah. So to answer that initial question, Bradley, whether it was the right to, I mean, the Soviet Union collapsed in '91. Was that the end goal?
Yeah.
Well,
I
let
don't
me
know.
let me point out some quick things because I downloaded a declassified Operation Mockingbird thing from '72 from the Ford Library. And even in this thing alone, it says it began in '72 and was discontinued in '72. But as you scroll down, you get to '61 where it was
Mhm.
used,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
you get to this thing's chock full of years from from 40s all the way to 62. If I was a government entity that wanted people to think that I stopped doing something, I would just tell them that I stopped doing it and then release classified information that said I stopped doing it. All the meanwhile, you have not stopped doing it.
I don't. On that note, Dan, I don't know if you heard Tulsi Gabbard make an announcement I think it was last August. She said that Operation Mockingbird is still in effect. Like, so you're talking about the '70s. No, this is back up to 2025.
yeah.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. They said it started in '72 and ended in '72.
Yeah, no,
That's
that's
the
not
third
true.
page in.
Yeah,
10 pages down, it's 61.
yeah.
It's
Even more pages down from that, it's even longer. It's even older.
so okay. Let's give some context or some more history, I should say. So there's a guy named Carl Bernstein who wrote an article for the Rolling Stone in 1977 talking about Operation Mockingbird. And it's not just an article, it's a 25,000 word article, which is like a short book. That's like a 100-page book. So anyways, here are just some random things. The New York Times, the agency relationship with the Times was by far the most valuable among newspapers, according to CIA officials. From 1950 to 1966, about 10 CIA employees were provided Times cover under arrangements provided by the newspaper's publisher Arthur Hayes Salzberg. The arrangements were part of a General Times policy to provide assistance to the CIA whenever possible. I'll read one more line later on. A senior CIA official who reviewed a portion of the agency files on journalists for 2 hours on September 15th, 1977, said he found documentation of 5 instances in which the Times had provided cover for CIA employees between 1954 and 1962. In each instance, he said the arrangements were handled by executives of the Times. And the documents showing language, quote, showing that it had been checked at higher levels of the New York Times. So, I mean, to your point, Dan, this has been going on at least since the 1950s. I guess, okay, here's my question. And Troy, you brought this up. Tulsi Gabbard, she's the director of intelligence or what's her?
Director of National Security,
Okay.
National Intelligence,
Yeah.
something like that.
DSI sounds.
That would be two different things, though. Let's look and see.
Yeah.
Tulsi Gabbard position.
Man, you're faster than me.
She is the Director of National Intelligence, DNI.
Intelligence. Okay. Yeah.
So, okay. I think about this. Do you guys know who Stephen Colbert is? He used to have
the late night comedy show guy. Yeah.
So there's he used to have the Colbert Report, which is the Colbert Report, and it was somewhat funny. And it was on Comedy Central, and he played a conservative, like a fake conservative talking head. And he, it was still kind of funny. It was making fun of like conservative talking, like.
I liked it for a while because it was just, he oftentimes just pointed out the absurdity of it all.
Right.
Right. Which is what I found very comedic. But then as I watched it, I realized
He's getting biased.
It's like just saying you're going to do something before you do it.
Yeah. Well, he got one of the late night shows. I don't know the name of all of them. There's like 5 of them or whatever. He got to one of them and he dropped the whole thing where he was being a fake conservative, and he just became a late night show host. He's supposed to be funny and a comedian, and he's very political, which I don't get. Like, I don't want to watch the late night show, which is supposed to be a comedy show with celebrities and music, but it's just political. Well, during COVID, he did like the COVID dance, like saying everyone should get their shots. I don't know if you guys saw
the vaccine.
Yeah, the vaccine. That's what it is. And he like did a little dance, and people were dressed up with the vaccine. Anyways, my question is this: how far? Like, let's think literal. Who is involved with someone like, who is that, ABC, NBC? Do you think there are government agencies today inside of some of these places like NBC, ABC, Fox, whomever, and who? So I'll start with you, Troy. Do you think there are still people inside?
I don't know. I mean, I would like to say I'm sure that there is, but you look at what they're reporting on today, especially in domestic news, do you really think the federal government would approve of that?
Right.
Like what's happened in Minneapolis the last couple of weeks, right? With the setting up the blockades in the middle of the streets and harassing people, proving that they're not ICE, and that whole shutdown. Was it ICE out business day? Have all the small businesses shut down for a day to protest ICE? Well, that's a communist move. Communism was they actively discouraged the open exchange of money, which is what capitalism is.
Right.
And so if that all happened and the news reported on it, if there was a government entity, an individual, an employee, someone that was embedded with these news agencies, do you think they would have aired that? I don't know. So I really don't know that if that's the case today. If there is, maybe it's a lot less influence than it was 60 years ago.
I will say we have proof, and I'll throw it to you, Dan. The FBI, how am I going to put this? Because I don't want to get us blocked on YouTube. The FBI told places like Facebook that they couldn't run the laptop thing in the 2020 election because they said it was Russian interference. Essentially, Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, had a laptop, and on the laptop was proof that he was making backdoor deals with other countries using the vice presidency when Joe Biden was the vice president.
There was more than just the laptop deals that came out about that.
But the point is, the FBI specifically told Twitter, who was Twitter at the time, and Facebook that they cannot run this New York Post article. And they complied, right?
And it surprised me that the New York Post ran that article. That was surprising.
So we know as of at least 2019, 2020, that time frame, there was interference. I mean, regardless of election. But what do you think today, Dan?
The sky's the limit, man.
Yeah.
Well, let's look at it this way, right? If we're talking what's their involvement, it comes down to this: who has enough money to pay the government to care about something, right? We can't sell biodiesel at a low enough price point because it will affect sales at the pump.
Yeah.
So we can't make a biodiesel business and sell fuel. Let's say, for instance, we make enough money that our philanthropic efforts are providing free diesel fuel.
Okay.
Let's say we clean fryers and we become a fry grease disposal company, and we make our money by providing a service of cleaning fryers and getting rid of waste vegetable oil to clean all of the pipes up for the city, right? If that's our business model.
Yeah.
And our offshoot, we're like, dang, we got all this biodiesel because we broke it down into usable pieces, right? And we have glycerin, and then we have compostable waste,
Yeah.
and we have biodiesel, right? And we have like all these commodities to offload, and we decide we have so much biodiesel and we need to get rid of so much of it that we're going to give it away to, let's say, farmers for not even on-road use. The EPA would step in and tell us, which is it's a government organization, right?
Right.
Yep.
They would step in and tell us that we have to go with the cost margins that are already set.
Yeah. So, okay.
So
That is not the same, and I'm not saying that's a good thing, but that's not the same as saying, let's say Freedom Finances is talking about diesel fuel and the cost of it, and the EPA coming in and say, hey, you can't cover this, or you need to understand this. Those are two different things. And I'm not saying the EPA regulating at a certain level is good or bad. What I'm saying, it's not the same thing as the media covering
okay,
it.
here's how let me tie it together to show you how it is connected.
Okay.
Okay. So when biodiesel started to get big, right? Willie Nelson, I don't know if you know this, he had his tour bus ran on biodiesel for years. And then he started a thing in some of the lower states where they were putting biodiesel plants together, and they were going to do biodiesel, for a lower price point than regular diesel was going to be, and it was going to shift to that for the market. They started saying that it wasn't. They started highlighting it. You saw articles pop up. There's like this guy did this thing where he did a graph and showed, like, after this article ran, for the next 6 months after it, it was articles about how hard it is to use biodiesel and how difficult it is to set up the networks and how it's not really as good and it's not really as clean, and it actually is less good than diesel because of this. And then it turned out all of those articles were funded by big oil stuff, but allowed to be paid for with fuel subsidies through the government.
Yeah.
So while it's not a direct result of the CIA controlling it, it's still media output that's biased by government agencies and through government agencies for a predicted outcome to sway people from a choice. So that's how it's connected in my mind.
Troy, let me ask you this. What today protects the reader? What can we do today to protect the reader or viewer of a media outlet to make sure that if you're reading whatever, Fox, ABC, NBC, how can we make sure that those people are protected in getting unbiased information? And I won't even say unbiased, but like non-government, like positioned media. Like what can we do today, or is there a resolution to our issue?
I mean, you could highlight the independent part of it, right? Independent reporter. Honestly, though, I think that falls down on the individual reader doing their research and making sure that they know this particular resource isn't biased, isn't controlled, isn't manipulated. And It's hard, especially a brand new news organization. You don't know their history. You don't know if they're going to end up being biased or not. There's also, on that note, though, Bradley, there is a company out there called Ground News that tries to rank or sort out different news organizations based on their biases. So you can go to Ground News and look at what organization leans which way and try and pick the most neutral, middle of the ground organization. But that still falls down on the individual reader to take the initiative and go and do that in the first place.
Yeah.
One that we read is called The Pour Over, and it's basically opinion pieces on things happening in the news, but I like that they do they do 2 points for each side, and then say let you decide, and then they give the Christian perspective with scripture to go along with it. So I appreciate that point because it helps you to bring it back to what faith-based understanding and using grace to see these things. For as much as I distrust the government, I still pray that God's will is going to happen. But
sure. So even with, what was the name of that organization, Dan?
Pour Over. The Pour Over.
Even
it's
with
P-O-U-R.
So
yeah,
even with
like
that,
coffee.
I'm not saying you shouldn't read it, right? Because we're all Christians here, but
it's still biased.
That is a bias, and maybe it's a good one, right? That you agree on, and I guess that's the point. Is like, well, if I'm a liberal, then yeah, I want to go read a liberal news organization. If I'm a Christian, I want to go read a Christian one. If I'm a conservative,
it's harder to read something from your alternate viewpoint.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
I don't know. Maybe it's just me. It's like I want to determine on my own, like how to connect the dots. In like if the thing about like Fox is like if you watch Fox at night, it's a lot of political pundits. Usually they're conservative, right? If you go watch CNN, it's a lot of political pundits. Usually they're liberal. Same. That's just how it is. Mm-hmm. Now, if you go on and read, for me, you should be able to read something and find the facts regardless of a bias. Watching a political pundit give his political point of view is fine. Like, I don't think there's any loss in integrity there, whether you're liberal, conservative, or whatever. That's your job.
Right.
But reading news, that's where it's like, I want to know the truth. And I tell my friends this, like, don't just read that says, well, Dan Adams said this thing. Read the actual quote, and even better, hear with your ears and see with your eyes him saying that thing so you can understand it. It's like the whole, there's good people on both sides. Do you guys know this? Like Donald Trump said, there's good people on both sides. There was for those who don't know, there was where was it? Like North Carolina or something. And there was like the guy who drove through like a crowd of people, and he was a white supremacist. And Donald Trump said like, hey, there are good people on both sides. And they cut off the second part of what he said, which was, but I'm not talking about like the white nationalists or the white racists. I'm talking about the normal people.
They just took vote. That one and then repeated it 10,000 times.
And they repeated it in the presidential election last year, it's like it's been debunked 1,000 times, right?
Right, but then they just replayed that again with the recent gaffe that happened from the White House, where and I didn't watch the whole video, but clearly somebody needs some editing help. But they let it go into another thing, right? And that guy came forward and said, hey, that was me, not Trump.
Yeah.
And I've heard other people say, well, you mean he doesn't control his own social media? And I'm like, there's not one famous person that controls their own social media.
So for those who don't know, there was this video, I forget, it was on like tariffs or tax. It was like a 1 minute long video and it was being shared on social media. And whoever was doing it did it the most retarded way possible. They were screen recording the video and sharing that screen recording. So it's like a whatever video. It's not even super political. And at the end of the video, a new, I think it was Facebook Reel scrolls. So I guess when you're watching Facebook Reel, when you're done with one, a new one pops in immediately.
Yeah.
The new one was like this AI version of like politicians in like animal form, and the first thing you see.
Are you talking about the Lion King?
Yeah,
one?
the first thing you see is
Okay.
Michelle and Barack Obama in like their faces on a monkey. There's more to that video, but who cares? It's irrelevant. What is relevant is that that wasn't a Donald Trump made AI video. It scrolled to the next thing, and everyone's like, Donald Trump is a racist. See, this is proof.
Right.
And you have to go through several lines. Like you said, Dan, this was someone else who did it. Was it a stupid thing to do? Yes, for like 1,000 reasons. Obviously, it was a rude thing
Yeah.
to do, but that doesn't prove anything. All it proves is that someone's an idiot and probably should be fired for making the president look this bad, right?
Yeah.
But your
Like
point,
you don't pay your personal, media person to save your image only for that to happen.
right? Yeah.
You know?
So, anyways, that's a good point. And there, everyone's like, Trump showed, or like Trump gives racist video of Obama's, which, okay, fine, but we have to understand the full context to understand it was stupid, but it wasn't Trump being racist.
I have an interesting take on this whole thing. Here's my interesting take, right? And it plays right into what we're talking about right now. If you create a framework for media, any mass media that happens, whether it's Facebook, X, Twitter, Instagram, any shareable, whether it be personal media or large scale media corporations, right? If you, as the CIA, which we know they have lots of smart people,
Yeah.
if you create a framework, right? Even like a change sorting machine, right? It doesn't matter if you use US coins or Canadian coins or French make it so that's the columns. You can make a framework that would make it seem like you have this giant network of control over everything, when really all you have to do is flag certain things
Sure.
very easily to make it appear that you have more control than you do.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Sounds like-
national security largely hinges on private gun control, like private citizens owning guns, because they'll never make it to the middle of the country because the US 48 states has more ammunition than any world military, right? So yeah, they'll make it kind of far, but at some point they just won't be able to step out of anything, and they'll run out of fuel or they'll run out of their supply lines. It just won't work. They can't
Yeah.
make it work.
Yeah.
Right? So just like how inherently the Second Amendment has kept us a free-ish nation, right? It's our own demise that's going to take us down. It's not another nation overtaking us.
Yeah.
It's going to be us ripping ourselves apart from the inside, which kind of plays into the Mockingbird thing and some other things,
Yeah.
but we don't have time to get to that echelon of
Yeah.
craziness. But what I will say is, if you get a framework, anything that gets filtered through that framework is going to appear that you have some level of control, and some, even if you don't, right? It will just appear that way.
Yeah.
It sounds like the Dominion election devices with the election fraud, right? All these votes and ballots were submitted, but those devices were programmed in a way to filter out certain things that led to the election fraud.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that sounds like, Dan.
Where they didn't have plants in every little election place, but if you get to the source code,
You know what? Now we're definitely getting banned from YouTube for saying that. Thanks, Troy.
Hey, well, that's
it was
fine.
a good run, guys.
But we'll go to Rumble. They don't care.
Fair. We should, in all seriousness, we should put our stuff on Rumble. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
I feel
Especially
like
if YouTube's going to be this way, we'd be like, fine, we don't need to use YouTube. But sorry, go ahead, Bradley.
no, you're good. I feel like we just literally opened the box and the fumes that came out, that's all we covered today. Like
Yeah,
we
maybe
Light it on fire.
yeah.
like it was pressurized, and it was like, psst,
Yeah.
and we're like, oh,
That's
that
what,
smells
and we were
horrible.
like wafting.
It's like a vacuum sealed bag of moldy cheese, and we just poked a hole in it.
Oh, gross.
Perfect. Well, that's all the time we have today. This is Sasquatch Talk. My name's Bradley. We got Troy, Dan, Adams. If you have a gun, you go shooting, look at that. Troy's got it, Sasquatch Gun Oil. Best gun oil you'll have for cleaning and lubrication, sasquatchgunoil.org. That's all we got. Have a good day. Adios.
Bye.